Welcome to our channel, your ultimate destination for the latest news and updates on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Stay informed and get a comprehensive understanding of the dynamic situation through our timely and reliable reporting. We cover the political, social, and military aspects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, bringing you in-depth analysis and expert insights. Join our community of engaged viewers by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel to stay updated with the latest developments and gain a deeper perspective on this critical geopolitical event. Don't miss out on the opportunity to be part of the conversation and stay informed. Like, subscribe, and join us on this journey of understanding the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
I'm not opposed to the idea. I think the more important question is, would Jordan Peterson want to be interviewed by me? He's the one with the millions of followers. I think I would have from just a purely, I don't want to say business perspective because I don't do business, but we would benefit. It's not like Jordan Peterson needs our followers. I'm grateful for our followers. Many of our followers probably follow Jordan Peterson. I don't know, but the idea of him saying I've got to get a hold of all Scott Ritter's followers when he has millions is strange. And so the question is, what gain is it for him? There's lots of gain for us. I would love to have a conversation with Peterson. I would love to be able to access his audience. Why do you think that we talked to Alex Jones? It's not like Alex Jones and I are on the same sheet of music on everything, but Alex Jones has an audience. And Alex Jones provided a viable platform, a respectful platform that allowed us to have a good, solid conversation that got to people who otherwise wouldn't have heard it. So would I like to do the same thing and access Jordan Peterson's audience to help broaden, not just our base, but broaden the scope and scale of the knowledge and information we're trying to impart? Yeah, I would, but it's not up to me. It's up to Jordan Peterson, and we'll see what happens.
I just want to point out that the questioner didn't really specify who the interviewer and who the interviewee would be in his mind. He said, would you do an interview? So I don't know. Could go either way. The other thing is, I don't think Jordan Peterson necessarily selects his conversational partner based on how big their audience is. I think he picks it based on what would be an interesting conversation. So
you know more about Jordan Peterson than I do, it seems. So I'll put the baton in your hands.
All right, fair enough. And I'm also going to reach out to some travel agents. I've actually already started to put out feelers. All right, Ann, you got some questions for us coming in live on YouTube and Facebook? Yes, you do. And thanks to our beloved audience, and thanks in particular to those who are donating, such as Darius King. We appreciate it. 60 Minutes recently had an episode about how big contractors overcharge the U.S. military because they know the U.S. doesn't have anywhere else to go for weapons. Is it true what they're saying?
100% true. I mean, it's just standard knowledge of how this works. Cost overruns, et cetera. It's accepted practice. It shouldn't be accepted. One would think that you would be able to shut down a corrupt contractor who underbid, knowing that halfway through, once a certain amount of money has been sunk in, they will renegotiate and say, well, we have cost overruns, this happened, and next thing you know, a $200 million system has become a $5 billion system, which has become a $40 billion system, which has become a $100 billion system. That's how it works. And the fact of the matter is, there is no competition. There's nobody else to turn to. They all play the same game. So this is why we have such a bloated defense budget, and this is why we have such a crappy military, because why is the Air Force dumping the F-22 fighter? Ask yourself that question, because it sucks. It doesn't work. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's too expensive to operate. It's a bad airplane. F-35 is even worse, but we can't acknowledge that because our entire future in terms of exports and our strategy for air hinges on the F-35, but it doesn't work. It literally is a piece of garbage aircraft. Why? Because of the way the defense industry works. There's no accountability. I'm not saying that this should be the way it happens, but Stalin during World War II let people know that they better produce things. They better get it there on time, and it better work. And if the consequences for none of that happening were dire, not messing around. We're dealing with the nation's defense. So there should be no room for greed. We really should have patriots in these businesses who look out for the interests of the country. Yes, it's a business. Yes, you make money, but it doesn't have to be an obscene amount of money. I would be the first one to recommend that there should be no boards for defense industry. Because when you have a board, the board's only interested in the dividend, the profit, the stock value. So they'll play stupid games and they'll allow things to happen where they get to jack up prices, manipulate supply to generate more content. Well, they'll lie about performance. Raytheon is lying about Patriot performance. Why? Because they need to create the impression that the Patriot works so they can sell it overseas. The U.S. military-industrial complex is one of the most fundamentally corrupt institutions in the world, and it's the American taxpayer that pays for it. And it's the American service member. Remember, these men and women in uniform we claim we support, we're giving them crap weapons. So if and when they do go to war against a near-peer force, we're condemning them to death.
Okay, what else you got, Ann? From anti-Soviet, Scott, could you please enlighten us as to who actually forms the U.S. foreign policy? Surely it is not the president and not the Secretary of State. Then who are these mighty ones, and are they accountable?
Well, I think we've talked about this before. I told about how in December of last year, I went down to Washington, D.C. to participate in the 35th anniversary of the signing of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. And we gathered all the INF treaty veterans, the negotiators, the implementers, the supporters. And they brought in a very senior State Department person who's responsible for arms control policy. And she gave a speech. And then she had question and answer afterwards. And one of the questions that was asked dealt with nuclear posture policy. We said, why, Joe Biden ran on the policy of sole purpose, meaning the sole purpose of America's nuclear arsenal is nuclear deterrence. And yet he became president, the commander in chief, the most powerful man in America and the world. And it didn't happen. What happened? Why didn't it happen? He's the boss. Why couldn't he make it happen? And she said, well, the interagency wasn't ready. What is the interagency? Wasn't on any ballot I voted for. When I was in the military, we had an interagency process where we knew where the State Department worked with the Pentagon, worked with the Department of Treasury, worked with Department of Energy, et cetera, to come up with a unified policy that had been set forth by the president. So everybody's on the same sheet. It was a process. But apparently this process has been transformed into an institution. And the institution called the interagency wasn't ready for it. This is the deep state, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when you have a national security establishment, foreign policy establishment that develops outside of the realm of accountability. It is a permanent establishment that has hijacked every aspect of policy making to the extent that even the president of the United States is incapable of coming and dictating an outcome. Now, I know we're not a dictatorship, but normally the resistance to dictatorship comes from elected officials in Congress. Nobody elected the establishment. Nobody elected the interagency, yet that is the source of national security and foreign policy.
That is just odious, and if not odious, I would say perhaps even heinous. Our new word.
Yes. Word. Did you find the clip?
This heinous crime.
You talked right over it. Let's do it again.
Commit this heinous crime.
Is that the clip? Is that the one you had?
That is it. The heinous crime.
Commit this heinous crime.
From my cousin Vinny. All right, we may be segueing into heinous instead of odious, but odious is just an all-time classic.
Odious.
This next question comes from Sori Petruscu. Scott, you visited Romania in the past. What do you think might be its fate in the future? I think the word A is, the letter A is missing. Any chance to get better relations with Russia? For now, it seems to be on evil's side.
I visited Romania in the fall of 1997. It was I was with the United Nations Special Commission. I was working with Romanian intelligence, British intelligence, and Israeli intelligence on setting up a an effort to interdict an Iraqi covert program to buy 51% controlling interest in Aerofina, which was a Romanian aerospace company that produced engines and guidance systems and missile bodies for the SA-2 missile. The SA-2 is a surface-to-air missile, but the technology can be adapted to surface-to-surface missile, and the Iraqis were in the business of adapting SA-2 technology into a Scud-like missile at that time. And so the Iraqis were sending a delegation to Romania to carry out this task. And so I was involved in coordinating the international response. I wrote a book, Iraq Confidential. You can read about what we were doing. It's pretty cool, spy versus spy stuff. But my interaction with the Romanians, who were very professional, by the way, but while they were interested in helping us do the right thing, they were also very interested in having recognition that by doing the right thing, they would get an inside track to join NATO. That was their number one priority. Same thing when I visited Ukraine earlier that year in 1997. The Ukrainians were like, "Hey, we'll help you, but you'll put in a good word to NATO for us, won't you? You'll tell the Americans to let us into NATO." And I kept reminding them that while I may be a U.S. citizen, I was working for the United Nations, and my sole focus was preventing Iraq from acquiring weapons technology illegally in violation of sanctions. But the Romanians, like much of Eastern Europe, had put their hope and faith in joining NATO, joining the Western Bloc. And what we see today is the result. We have a Romanian government that has been hijacked by the West. The political and economic elite of Romania owe their power structure, their status today to the West, to NATO. And so they're firmly aligned with that. But I think there's more and more people realizing that the cost that they're paying for having sold their soul to the devil, so to speak, is quite high. And within Romania, there are elements of society that remember that the Russians, aren't the devil, that Russia, there are benefits to having good relations with Russia. One of them, of course, is low energy costs, which is very important. But the other one is that Russia isn't in the business of starting wars all over the world, and NATO is. I mean, imagine being a Romanian right now and waking up to find out that NATO is trying to open up an office in the Pacific. Now, as Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, has noted, it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, not the Pacific Organization, but that's where they're headed. Romania is not happy.
All right. Every question must be answered in 3 minutes or less, lest the whip be administered.
The cat is worried you were trying to whip it.
Oh, no. Mehdi, thank you for the donation, Mehdi. Why would the Ukrainians remove the only real threat they have to sweep away Russian pontoon bridge crossing the Dnieper and the Kherson region? Russia just has to wait for it to ebb away, no?
I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But if you think the Russians are going to take Kherson by an amphibious assault over the Dnieper River, I think you're wrong. I think Russia, if they take Kherson, it's going to be because they're sweeping down on the right bank of the river as they exploit the collapse of the pending collapse of the Ukrainian military in the major battles in Zaporizhia and Donetsk and elsewhere. So I don't see the Russians doing this major riverine operation to capture Kherson. I think their best bet is to come in and isolate Kherson in a drive to Odessa. Logistically, it's just very difficult to sustain an operation over pontoon bridges over that. The best thing Russia could do is develop a logistical base and exploit military success in the north as they drive down on the right bank of the Dnieper River. But I'm not a Russian general. Who knows?
All right, let's do one more question. What do you have, Ann? From Dark Boot. Can you ask Scott what means for soldiers? What does D-Day mean today to soldiers? I think is what the question is.
I don't know. Go online and find out how many articles are out there. Is it the #1 story? Did they lead off with that story today? When you turn on CNN, it's the first story. Today is the 79th anniversary of D-Day. We're going to solemnly reflect on the sacrifice made by those men and women who gave their lives in defense of the liberation of France, in preparation of setting up a second front against the odious, heinous Nazi Germany. silence, total silence. There's nothing going on. You may find a story here and there, a special interest story somewhere, but there's nothing. And one of the main reasons is that everybody's dead. There's not too many D-Day veterans left, and we're a nation that apparently you have to have someone alive and kicking and breathing to make any relevance. So that's the difference between us and the Russians. I will tell you right now, when I was in Russia in the lead up to Victory Day, during Victory Day, and afterwards, every single Russian is looking to the heavens and looking up and saying, are we doing right by you? And what they're talking to are their relatives who perished in that war or served in that war and have perished afterwards. Every single day, they think about those who sacrificed everything, and they keep them in their minds. That's why the Immortal Regiment is so powerful, because they walk with the photographs of the loved ones who perished, who served. They will never be forgotten. That's the key. The Russians never forget. We have forgotten everything. We have forgotten. This is why I wrote the article about D-Day today, because we can't forget. We have to remember there was a time when Americans put it all on the line in defense of what we believe in, to assault the Nazi empire together with the Soviet army. We tend to forget that aspect of it as well. The Russians don't forget at all. We have forgotten.
Well, your answer was mostly in reference to the media, but the question was, what do you think it means to U.S. soldiers? I mean, not that you're in touch with every U.S. soldier, but do you have any sense of it?
I would hope that in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I would hope every battalion commander worth his or her salt assembled their battalion and read them the history of their unit, reminded them that on D-Day, this is what happened. This is your heritage. This is who you came from. We will never disgrace them. We will always honor them. We will never forget, never forget, never forget. Because we do that in the Marine Corps. I can tell you that, on any major day, especially Marine Corps birthday, we remember those who came before us. We will never disgrace their memory. We will never disgrace their sacrifice. We will die before we embarrass or disgrace the Marine Corps. That's what makes the Marine Corps the fighting force that it is. I would hope that the Army does the same thing, but I don't know. But it's not institutionalized, because how can you have a battalion commander taking the lead when the U.S. Army hasn't done a damn thing? Where is the U.S. Army today? Today should be the day when General Mark Miley stands before the entire Army and talks about D-Day, talks about the great sacrifice, about the great, the standard that was set, and says everybody who serves today should live up to this standard. We should never forget where we came from, who we are, what we are. But we don't know. We're too busy talking about other things that have nothing to do with our history. We have forgotten our history. And that's one of the things that I picked up when I was over in Russia, is they know their history. They will never forget their history. They make history, their history, an ever-present part of their current reality.
Well said. I only hope that you didn't scare the cat too much this time.
I think Anubis has run away.
There was numerous pounding of the fist there.
Well, I apologize.
You can make it up to the cat later. All right, as usual, Scotty's on fire, and we love it, and we appreciate it very much. I want to remind folks that on Scenes from the Evolution Sunday, we're going to be discussing a speech that Vladimir Putin made in 2021 as a way of just familiarizing the U.S. audience in particular with exactly what his point of view is. And one easy way to find it is you can go to evolver.live, evolver.live. Also, it's on our YouTube channel. And we will be back on Friday night with the loquacious version of Ask the Inspector. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Scott takes more time answering the questions, and the show is longer.
No whip.
No whip. Definitely no whip. No limit at all. It's whatever Scott feels like saying. And if you want to get a T-shirt, go to scottrittermerch.com.
Now, when you buy the T-shirt, is it a T-shirt that's been worn by Ryan, or is it new?
It's brand new. It hasn't been worn by him, but as we have said before, you will have muscles like that within 1 week, guaranteed. Absolute guarantee. Take us to court if it doesn't happen. And also, you've got.
Jeff, we don't have the budget for a lawyer, so be careful what you ask.
It's good publicity. It's good publicity. Come on, imagine how much fun it would be if Ryan sued us, or not Ryan, but a customer. I'll make sense eventually. And then the book is back in stock, right?
Yes, and
okay,
being mailed as we speak. So
as we speak, geez, amazing.
Well, I'm sorry.
I won't take
it being processed for mailing as we speak.
All right, sounds good. All right, and thanks to Ann Moss, who was curating the comments backstage. She has taken over on Tuesdays now, as well as Fridays, and Kevin Michelizzi is no longer with us. We'd like to thank him for his services for all these months. We appreciate it, and we wish him all the best. And you can watch his podcast on his YouTube channel, which is American in Crimea. I wonder if that dam is going to be affecting his area. Do you know how
Well,
close
my
it is?
understanding is that it will have an impact on the water supply to Crimea. Yeah.
Oh, that's not good at all. Well, let's hope. Well, I don't know. What can we say? Let's just hope for the best. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Friday night. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.